Good evening, everyone. This is the Puyallup City Council study session for April 15th, 2025. I'm Jim Castleman, Mayor. Pleasure to be here. May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Adler.
Present.
Councilmember Dorr.
Present.
Councilmember Gilliam.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Whitting.
Present.
Deputy Mayor King.
Excused.
Mayor Castema.
Present. Okay, excellent. Let's move for the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, excellent. Let's move on to agenda item number 1A, and that is our Stormwater Comprehensive Plan presentation. And for those people who are viewing this online, keep in mind this is a study session. We do things a little bit different in a study session than we do in a regular session. Usually in a regular session, we'll have public comments first, and then we'll have presentations, code revisions, things of that sort that will come afterwards. In this case, we have presentations, and then we have citizen comments, and they're limited to just 2 minutes, and they have to pertain to the subjects that we're talking about, because this is, again, a little different than a normal council session in that we're trying to study an issue. We're going to ask a lot of questions, learn more about it, and then we will have future decisions that will come before the council. And I want to make sure that the public and, of course, the council is very well informed on these issues so we make good decisions when we're asked to revise a code, approve a budget item, approve a development agreement, whatever the case may be, that we have that kind of knowledge. So that's the reason for a study session. With that, our city engineer, Hans Hunger, can you discuss our Stormwater Comprehensive Plan presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Castema. So I'm happy to be here to introduce this subject, but I've got Kelton Parker from our Stormwater Group that has been the project manager for this update of our comprehensive plan that will give the details. And then Margaret from Brown and Caldwell will also be doing some presentation here. So the Stormwater Comp Plan, we update this about every 10 years. All of our utilities have their own comp plan components. Those fit into the larger city comp plan that you're working on right now. But they give us more information about the condition of our utilities, what projects we should be planning for, the priority of those things, the programs. And it's what helps us to be able to work into things like in 2022 when we passed a utility rate study. The information from the comp plan helps inform us what do we need to plan for, what rates do we need there. So it's really key to keep these things up to date, to be understanding, and it's one of those things almost the more you know, it's like the scarier how complicated it gets, but it's really good information there. And I'm happy to be presenting this. It's not often that we get to introduce you to the details of our stormwater program, which is a very complex program and has a lot of aspects to keeping things clean there. So any opportunity we can use to get inform you and kind of inform you of all the good work that we do is very important. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelton to give the presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hans. So as Hans mentioned, Kelton Parker, I'm a stormwater engineer for the city of Puyallup, and then with me I have Margaret Ailes. She's the project manager on the consulting side that helped us develop this plan. So kind of just working through the agenda here. So I'll discuss a little bit on the stormwater kind of drainage system and kind of the background of our drainage system, the purpose of the plan, our kind of high level, our stormwater programs, some of our bigger capital projects, and then go into kind of the 6-year implementation plan and then the schedule that we've had so far and the trail that we've left it for getting this comprehensive plan to the phase of adoption. All right, so kind of a little bit of background here. What is stormwater? So stormwater is rainwater and runoff that is collected through our drainage system. Where does stormwater runoff go? It flows to our rivers, our streams, our ponds, and then whatever doesn't flow to those, it could go to our groundwater system and then eventually makes it to those same streams, rivers, and ponds. So what is the problem with stormwater? It picks up pollutants along the way, which decreases water quality, and increased flow can cause erosion and increase temperatures of water, which is bad for habitat and recreation. All right, so here's a look at our drainage system. We have 8 drainage basins in the city of Puyallup. Those are the large polygons on the screen there. And in those 8 drainage basins, there are 253 miles of pipe, 25 miles of ditch, and 650 culverts. Puyallup's a little unique just in the fact that we have more stormwater pump stations than most jurisdictions. We have 8 stormwater pump stations. A lot of that is just due to the valley floor being so flat. And then we have 96 outfalls that discharge to our creeks, streams, rivers, and lakes. And then also on top of that, we have 459 stormwater facilities that control the flow of stormwater and treatment for our stormwater. All right, so the purpose of the stormwater comp plan. One of the main purposes is to prioritize and plan our near-term capital projects for the next 6 years. Identify resources to meet regulatory requirements, and the main regulatory requirement I'll be talking about today is our MPDS permit, or Municipal Stormwater Phase 2 permit. We also want to improve stormwater asset management, which I'll go into a little bit on our stormwater R&R programs, coordinate efforts with other city planning, kind of as Hans mentioned. This is kind of an addition to our citywide comprehensive plan, and then evaluate system capacity for growth through modeling efforts. All right, so kind of background. A major update is usually done about every 10 years for utility plans. We're a little later on this one, but 10 years is about usually what we shoot for. As Hans mentioned, this complements the city comprehensive plan, and then that little page on the right is actually the stormwater permit that I was referencing. That's the Phase 2 municipal stormwater permit. And the significance of this is it's actually required by the Clean Water Act. It protects and restores our waters for fishable and swimmable uses, and it directs how the city is allowed to discharge stormwater from surface water, or to surface water, sorry about that. It also focuses on programs that jurisdictions are required to implement to protect water quality, and overall the goal is to reduce pollutants and runoff. And the municipal stormwater permit is usually re-administered about every 5 years, so it's a 5-year cycle. So we get new regulations about every 5 years that come with that for stormwater. So summary of our programs that we have at the city: we have 33 stormwater programs. 26 of these are MPDS or regulatory programs. We have 25 existing and 1 new program that we need to develop with new MPDS requirements. We have 7 asset management programs, 3 of which are new programs, which are our R&R programs for stormwater infrastructure, pump stations, and culverts. And then we have 4 existing programs. So new MPDS requirements. So there's a new mapping requirement that is specifically for mapping tree canopy, and this is specifically for stormwater trees that have a benefit to stormwater management. So generally this does not include like your typical street tree. It's usually like a group of trees or something that is beneficial to stormwater management. And then we have a new mapping requirement for treating and or for mapping treated and untreated areas, which has somewhat already been done with our SMAP, which is another one of our programs I'll talk about later. Stormwater Management Action Plan is what that stands for. There's a lot of acronyms in stormwater, if you didn't already realize that, and I'll try to explain as many of them as I can as I go through here. We did some of that with that, but there's additional work that'll need to be done to meet that requirement. There's a new planning and retrofit program that we'll need to develop, and I kind of already mentioned improving the existing stormwater management action plan. We'll have a couple new goals, which has to do with the tree canopy that we'll need to meet, and then some code updates for illicit discharges. That'll be including new code language for PFAS and PCBs.
Excuse me, Kelton?
Yeah.
It's Kelton, right?
Yes.
Yes. If a member has a question, go ahead and just highlight your name. I'll go ahead, and in an opportune moment, I'll go ahead. Just be prepared as we go along. And if you're going to address the particular question, just say, I'm going to address that in a future slide, okay?
Okay.
Just so that people have a relevant slide in front of them when they're asking a question. But please proceed.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So the last requirement is street sweeping. And our current street sweeping program is pretty robust already. Really, the only thing that we'll need to do with our street sweeping program is just increase our documentation and do some additional reporting for our annual permit, which is related to the MPDS permit. All right, so as I mentioned, most of our existing stormwater programs meet the new requirements. We do have some needed changes with developing one new program, expanding 3 of our existing programs due to growth, and I'll go into those in a little bit, and also procuring some additional professional services for planning purposes. All right, so the SMED program, Stormwater Management for Existing Development, is a new program that is designed to improve water quality and reduce peak stormwater discharges from areas of existing development. And the goal for this program is to fund, construct, or implement projects to treat at least 6.9 acres. And that 6.9 acres is defined in the MPDS permit, and that comes from, they used 8 acres to 50,000 population, so that's how Puyallup gets the 6.9, is it's based on 8 acres per 50,000 population. We can use existing program information that we already have to help us meet this new requirement. And one of those is the mapping that we've already done for the SMAP program. And another one is the stormwater rehab program that we implemented in 2002 in preparation for this, this new requirement. And as part of that rehab program, we've done 2 rehabs, one in 2002, one in 2003, and the pictures up there are before and after of one of them that we did. And we've already seen some benefit to that rehab program with eliminating some, well, not eliminating, but relieving some flooding downstream at 12th Avenue Southeast and 27th Street.
Kelton, I have a question.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitting.
You talk about 6.9 acres. What is 6.9 acres of what?
6.9 acres of drainage area that we have to.
So like retention ponds?
Yeah, so if you have an acre lot or something like that, and a drainage facility serves that acre, that would count for your acre, depending on what the requirement is. There's a different scaling. The program's pretty complicated. So there's different.
So what you're saying, for every acre of development, you have to have a certain percentage, correct, in drainage?
So this is not redevelopment. This is existing development.
Existing development.
Yeah, so this is like retrofit type stuff. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at this picture. I have to tell you that I don't think the after looks very good at all. It looks rather unappealing to me. I hope that it kind of grows in and ends up looking more like the before. I hate to say that, but anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have your question?
Yeah, we are talking retention ponds and that sort of thing, correct?
Yes, treatment or flow control. It could be either. Yeah.
So treatment, what is treatment?
Treatment would be like a underground vault or some sort. Some above ground facilities like bioretention also provides treatment, or proprietary devices like filter vaults or Vortec units. They're just vaults that go on the ground that remove pollutants from stormwater.
Thank you. And just following up on Mayor Castema's comment, do our retention ponds have to look at like the after, or can they look a?
So that was right when hydro seed went down. So that is actually grass that is going to germinate. And the contractor is obviously responsible to make sure that germinates. So it will have grass in it. It won't just stay like that, if that's the question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kelton, a little bit, and Council, forgive me for a little bit of digression, but since we are talking about a comprehensive plan on our drainage and storm system, I'd like to, at some point in discussion tonight further down, but I want to cue it up now to talk about it later because maybe it's not going to be applicable to this portion. But I think that engineers' good intentions on development is to determine, based off of development, what retention requirements are necessary. And in good faith, they go in, and it's best hopes that they're utilized to the fullest capacity of what anticipated. But I would like to discuss, not right now, but when we get to that point, or bring it up as a subject matter, if we're going to do a comprehensive kind of plan update for the utilities and stormwater, I'd like to see an assessment or a report that after, let's just say, a stormwater pond is put in, and all of a sudden the water is draining fine, and that pond is not really being utilized. And so we've got this real estate just kind of hanging out there dry and really underutilized, that maybe perhaps that property could be repurposed or redone rather than just having kind of lie dormant and then hope for a 100-year flood to fill it up again. It just seems like a possible way. So is there any reevaluation on ones that were put in that for some reason is just not really being fully utilized? Because I've seen quite a few around town, some smaller, some larger, that appear unscientifically to really not be utilized as perhaps it was started out to be intended, and maybe some new stormwater drains or things were put in after the fact and rendering some of these ponds not really being fully utilized. So is there an assessment down the road the city could look at reassessing that, or is it perpetuity as a status forever?
I would say generally our stormwater ponds were designed to an older standard and are actually smaller than they're supposed to be. There may be areas in the city with really good infiltrating soils where you don't see a lot of water in them all the time because the water disappears so fast. Unless you're there during a large rain event, you won't see ponding water. So it depends on the design of the facility and what the facility's intent is. For specifically these rehabs, one of the reasons we do these is to gain capacity in the stormwater ponds. So if you're going to gain capacity in a stormwater pond, you remove the extra vegetation and it helps relieve. In this case, it actually did help relieve some downstream flooding. So I think it depends on what you're looking at specifically. I can't just say broadly that, yes, that could be the possibility, but there may be a certain stormwater facility around town that may be being underutilized. I'm not sure.
Well, I'd like to make this a subject matter to discuss. In other words, let's just say after a period of 10 years or whatever, it's shown that this is not being utilized very well. There's no need for whatever reason, that there could be a way to recoup that property back into some better uses than just a hole. And if there was a process for applicants to report, say, listen, we did this in good intent. It's not really being it's not really working out like we anticipated, and then they can repurpose that property again rather than just kind of an eyesore. So I hope is there a system like that in place for reassessment? If not, could we put a system like that in place to reassess the need for it after a certain period of time has gone by and it's really not doing what it was intended to do based off of whatever factors there are?
I don't know that we have anything like that in the plan currently, but there are opportunities, grant opportunities and things like that where you can do kind of a joint purpose, like a recreational combination with like a park and a stormwater facility. So there are things like that out there, if that's what you're talking about. That would be something that we'd have to explore. I think most of those things are, again, situational based on where you want that stuff located, and you have to have the right combination of recreation and stormwater to be able to do those, but something we can look
Well,
at.
Hans, could we discuss this offline? I think I'd like a process where if there is a certain storm pond or whatever that's just not really being utilized like it's intended for whatever reasons, that there could be a way to possibly an applicant could apply, say, listen, in good intent, this was built 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's really not serving a major purpose to reclaim that property back to just usable property. Be nice to know there is an exception. Now, it probably is not going to happen to very many, but maybe there's one or two that could be utilized, and we shouldn't just hold it in perpetuity if, in fact, it's not really functioning in the intended use that it was supposed to happen. So that'd be a discussion I want. Even though it's rare, I think we should respect property rights and realize, hey, if it's not doing what we thought it was going to do, let's not hold it up into a kind of a goalie that is not collecting much water that's significant, so thank you.
Councilmember Whitting.
Are you familiar with the LaBelle property?
Yes.
Obviously, that's a low-lying property, subject to flooding, not subject to development. Is that being factored into your stormwater plan as a possible area for treatment?
So there are some projects located around there. They are not on the priority list, which I'll get into capital projects here in a little bit. But there are projects identified in that area. I can't remember off the top of my head because we have like 200 and something projects that we've identified. But
good enough, thanks.
Okay.
We can talk about it on the capital projects.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think his question is can it be used as a repository, as a reservoir? I know I'm using probably words that are not technically appropriate, but can that be used, correct? In lieu of maybe some other type of facility like you have here in this slide, can you actually pipe from the South Hill, for example, or wherever, can you pipe water there and use it?
I think that's something that could be looked at. One of the difficulties there is a lot of that's floodplain. So getting enough storage in that area for a stormwater facility dealing with the floodplain can be difficult.
Okay.
But I think that's something that would have to be looked at as part of the master plan of whatever that LaBelle property is. I'm not super familiar with that myself, but
You're correct. It is a floodplain, and that's why conservation futures, it's undevelopable for the most part.
yeah.
Okay, wait, proceed.
Thank you. All right, so going back into the SMED here, so some of the recommended needs that we've identified is potentially some existing stormwater staff and professional services to help us develop this program. All right, so getting into the stormwater R&R programs. So the three that I already kind of touched on is stormwater infrastructure, pump stations, and culverts. So what is an R&R program? So basically you have all your assets, your stormwater assets. You perform condition assessments on these assets, whether that's pipes or pump stations or culverts, and you get a rating for these assets. And then you use those ratings to prioritize repairs, replacements, maintenance, or just extended observations to make sure that they aren't decaying at a faster rate. And then you can use these programs to help you allocate resources efficiently and effectively. So some of the needs for this program would be potentially some additional stormwater engineering staff or maintenance staff and professional services help as well. So the expanded programs, kind of due to growth, the three big ones, basically as the city grows with redevelopment, new development, annexation, our stormwater programs also grow. And the three big programs, or the three main programs that really get caught in some of this growth are our municipal facility inspection program, which is the inspection of all of our public facilities, which is required by the MPDS permit. All three of these actually are. Our private facility inspection program, and our business source control program. So a recommended need for this eventually, kind of over the 6-year planning period, would be additional stormwater inspection staff. All right, so into the capital projects, I think kind of what everybody wants to hear about. So we reviewed and prioritized more than 100 stormwater-related problems and identified projects. And in this, for the priority projects and the second tier projects. We identified kind of what we call as the project driver, and this helps us prioritize and distribute funds better. So project summaries for capital projects. So each priority capital project has a fact sheet in the stormwater comp plan. There are 9 priority projects for capital and 6 studies. There are also 37 second tier projects and 7 studies. The second tier projects do not have fact sheets. They're higher level planning than even what the priority projects are. But some of them do have escalated cost estimates based on previous cost estimates that were developed in other plans or previous planning. All right, so kind of a project highlight here, the 4th Street stormwater upgrades for downtown revitalization. Reroutes downtown stormwater to the Puyallup River. It's a multi-phase project. Phase 1 was completed in 2025, and that was from River Road to 7th Street. I'm sure most people saw that project in action. And the total estimated cost for all the phases is about $25 million. All right, so 6-year implementation plan from 25 to 2030. So currently we have 3 ongoing projects identified in that 6-year plan, 6 priority capital projects, 6 modeling studies, and 4 new programs, 14 approved programs, and approximately 6 new recommended FTEs. So the kind of high-level implementation plan. So the top 6 projects on there are actually ongoing projects. They're either in design or in construction, and the ones that have the stars are projects that were partially grant funded. And then the bottom 3 are just in like the very beginning planning stages, or we're kind of just starting to dive into those. All right, so new work for existing staff in stormwater. So we evaluated program needs and existing staff workloads to determine how much new work our existing staff can kind of take on. So there's some new requirements with the SMAP, which is the Stormwater Management Action Plan, that existing staff can kind of absorb, and that's requirements that are based in the MPDS permit, and as well as all these other ones on the left. Those are all MPDS-driven requirements, and those are all some smaller requirements that we'll need to develop into our programs that existing staff can kind of take over, and we can kind of run with those. So those are planned to be developed into existing staff workloads. All right, so some additional services. Some of this is just our 6-year costs for new R&R programs, TMDL programs, and then also some professional services assistance for some of these programs. I don't know, I'm probably not going to go into a lot of detail here, but some of this is, so like, for example, pump station R&R down there at the bottom, the $600,000, that's basically $100,000 into that program per year, which gets you up to $600,000. So this is
Excuse me, Kelton.
Yes.
R&R?
Repair and replacement.
Okay. Thank
Sorry.
you. It's fine.
All right, so revenues and expenditures in the implementation plan. So we have the available from our current budget for recommended improvements, and then the recommended improvement cost down at the bottom, which, if you notice, it shows an $11 million deficit, but don't want us to get too hung up on that, because we also have been pretty successful with stormwater grants. I went back and looked at from about 2017 what we've received for stormwater grants, and depending on the year, we average about $3 million a year for stormwater grants, which is pretty good. Granted, this can fluctuate by year depending on what your projects are, and how well they fit into grants, how competitive those grants are that year. But I just wanted to highlight that because we have been pretty successful in the last few years with acquiring these stormwater grants. All right, so schedule. We went to Planning Commission, started in July 24. Got the final draft kind of wrapped up in 24.
Kelton, excuse me.
Yes.
Councilmember Adler. No, Councilmember Johnson, I don't believe. Do you want to speak again?
Yeah, I do, but I shouldn't go. Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I thought you had left it
No.
on, that's all. Councilmember Adler, why don't you go first?
Thank you. This will be very quick. Going back to the grants,
Yeah.
can you share like the split between local, state, federal? Do you have an idea? I suspect that state grants are likely the majority of grants we've received.
I don't know that off the top of my head. Hans?
Yeah, I would say at this point, it's probably at least 90% state. Department of Ecology, a lot of water quality retrofit grants, also culvert replacement grants. Those have all been generated at the state level.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Johnson, and I apologize,
Oh,
Councilmember
no
Johnson.
problem.
I thought that was just a remnant of a prior.
No apology needed, but accepted. Thank you. So going back a few slides, you don't necessarily need to go back there. There was some mention of culverts at Deer Creek, and one was mentioned emergency. Can you tell me a little bit about what's the emergency culvert replacement on that?
Yeah, so the emergency replacement, I think we actually renamed that, but that's beside the point. That project is replacing 4 culverts on 27th and is it 12th? 12th. And one of them is a culvert that has been lined with a temporary culvert that's undersized. So that's kind of the failing portion of it. We're still working on receiving the funds for that grant. Is that correct, Hans?
So up 27th, the street southeast, the tributaries of Deer Creek. Deer Creek goes under 27th, but it also has a tributary that goes twice more under there. And in one of those cases, the road had washed out, and we had to do an emergency repair. To repair this correctly would take years and substantial money. So we pretty much put a Band-Aid back as we searched for grants. Now, we have been able to secure a grant, again, through the state of $8.3 million that we're working on replacing those 4 culverts there. But that's why it was an emergency, because it actually washed out the road and cut off about 5 properties.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. One other thing that was interesting. Lastly on the culverts, these 3 that are mentioned, rough ideas. You can get back to me if you need to, because it's a little bit spontaneous question. How many culverts have we recently replaced, and how many are still yet to go in the works?
Depends on what you talk about as in the works. If you're talking FIS passage requirements, there's a lot. If you're talking condition, we need to do condition assessments for them to know the answer to that. We have probably 100 identified in our R&R, culvert R&R program, which helps us prioritize culvert replacements. So as far as, how many are priority, I know we have East Main as a priority. Those Deer Creek ones that Hans was just talking about, there's a couple along 25th over on Deer Creek, where Deer Creek parallels the road, that are in one of the projects that are a priority. Does that answer your question?
It does. Okay. And lastly, there was one that kind of was glossed over, but I'd like to get more information on it because it's really intriguing. There was something on there about some kind of beaver management. Can you give me a little idea what that was? Yeah,
so beaver management program, it's just to manage beavers, and in some cases, beavers create flooding issues. We actually had a case down in Deer Creek, where we had to get a HPA, a permit to notch out a beaver dam to reduce some of the backwater that it was causing. So you have to go through a permitting process to do that. So that's kind of what that program is managing beavers, and when do you go in and do something like that, or when do you have to relocate them, stuff like that. So that's what that program is.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that, because there's, the city has done a really good job of restoring habitat. And when you restore habitats, the consequence that happens is that certain critters come back when you do habitat, and then sometimes we get a little critical. Well, wait a minute, I didn't want you. I want this habitat to come, but I don't want you. And so it kind of becomes this kind of weird, well, why did you create this corridor? I know the last 2 times that I've seen a beaver come in on Silver Creek, the management for that by the city has been kill and euthanize. And I don't appreciate that. If we're going to, create these, infrastructures of ecostreams and plantings and trees, let's be smart enough to work around them, create some relief, let the water go, but let's not just eliminate the habitat if we're going to invite the habitat down. And I'm not necessarily a animal advocate, but I am kind of a common sense advocate. If we're going to do it, let's just kind of work and work around it. So it's my hope that when I see another beaver in our city, specifically in Silver Creek, that we're going to work either to transplant it somewhere else, or to create some diversion around it to allow the water flow, but still maintain the habitat in their environment that we're kind of encouraging by this canopy intense that we're doing. So I'm glad that at least it's on a subject matter, because I didn't realize it was actually something that you're actually watching. It was fairly encouraging to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so yeah, we had the final draft developed in November 2024. We're here today, and then we have a public hearing and first reading scheduled for April 29th. And that is all I have for you today, unless you guys have any other questions you would like to ask.
I have a question regarding the Washington State Stormwater Center at Washington State University Research Extension Center. I don't think most people in Puyallup are aware that the Stormwater Center for the entire state is located right here in Puyallup at the Washington Research Extension Center. And I'm wondering what kind of interaction you have with them, because I know they have a salmon lab. They're actually in the process of applying for funds to put in a hatchery, and that would deal with water quality, Clark's Creek, Eladia. Very common problem with stormwater in many suburban areas is old creeks, ditches, now just become huge runoff areas for shopping malls, housing developments, those types of things. As we were just a farm, we had farmland throughout the valley. So what is your interaction with them? Are you utilizing technology? Do you meet with them on a regular basis? Give me an idea of what our relationship is like.
Yeah, so we have a pretty good relationship with Washington Stormwater Center. Lori, I'm forgetting her last name right now, but she's the one that kind of runs a lot of the stormwater stuff over there. And she helps coordinate a lot of regional meetings. So myself, our other stormwater engineer, and our 2 stormwater local source control specialists go to a variety amount of these meetings that they schedule. So yeah, we're involved in that. We've also helped the Washington Stormwater Center develop a couple online trainings to help businesses, specifically food trucks and pop-up vendors at events. So like Meeker Days and stuff like that, where they pop up tents just to help them understand pollution and how to address, getting rid of their grease or getting rid of the garbage and stuff like that. So we've helped develop 2 of those trainings that are available online to basically whoever would like to take them. Me and one of our other stormwater engineers are also involved in a technical advisory committee that is partially coordinated by Lori, and also I believe a grant from the Department of Ecology and a consultant on reviewing a street sweeping manual to help jurisdictions meet the new street sweeping requirements for the NPDES permit. So we have a pretty robust street sweeping program, but other jurisdictions don't. They have a lot of work to do on meeting that requirement. So we kind of provided some input on what our program does and how other jurisdictions could meet those requirements. I'm sure there's some other things that aren't coming to me.
What about their pervious pavement program out there? That's the test bed for that. Do we integrate that? There's in my neighborhood, there is one street that would be what, 4th? Yeah, 4th. it would be, 4th Street Northeast. At least at one end, that's all pervious pavement. What has been the Puyallup's luck with that? Are we, have we tested that and decided, because that does affect stormwater runoff significantly. Is that something that you see as the latest technology? Was it a fad? Is it something that needs to be developed further before we implement it? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's still something that is, does obviously help with stormwater runoff and treatment when it's implemented in the right locations. Specifically areas where it's lower volume, things like that, where it's not high pollutant loads. There's some guidance in the stormwater manuals and our standards as far as like when to use those types of treatment devices, specifically permeable pavement. But yes, I think they are very successful in areas where it's a lower volume. The areas where we've seen it be less successful are higher traffic areas. But the areas that we've implemented permeable pavement, most of those permeable pavement implementations are from grants that we've received from the Department of Ecology. But yeah, those lower ADT roads, traffic roads, are pretty successful with permeable pavement. Same thing with sidewalks. It works pretty well on sidewalks as well.
Okay. All right. And just to remind everyone who might be viewing this and council members, that was, Hans, correct me, it was maybe 3 years ago, we went ahead and approved a rate structure because we have to deal with the big three: stormwater, sewer, and water. Those are the big items that we have to deal with on utility end. And we went ahead, the council did, and approved a rate structure that accelerated much of the repair installation of all of these projects. And Hans, can you address that?
Yes. So with the rate structure, we were looking at specifically like what's the condition of our infrastructure, and do we need to accelerate the collection of money so we can replace some of this aging infrastructure there. That was in 2022. We implemented a 5-year plan at the direction of the council that does a graded increase in the 3 different utilities to be able to catch up. A lot of the components of the stormwater plan are integrated into that rate study. But as I said at the beginning, what we use this comp plan for is there new information, either new regulations, new infrastructure that wasn't accounted for that needs to be considered. So in theory, at the end of 5 years, you would look again to say, okay, now how are we doing here and stuff? Could rates go down? Could rates go up, to try to adjust it? So trying to stay on top of that with the best information from the comp plans, and then using that into how do we plan into the future so we're not getting ourselves in a hole.
Okay. Well, thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Oh, Hans, could you stay up here? I want to ask you just a closing comment. In the comprehensive plan for zoning and things that we're going through, that's an important document because it sets the tone for the future of our city. So there's a lot, if you're going to kind of make some modifications, you want to do it now. Maybe in some slight way, there's something here that we want to get in there. I really want to drill down to you specifically and petition you to find out, again, is there a process that after a certain period of time, if some of these water retention areas are not really being fully utilized due to whatever the issue is, maybe improved flow elsewhere, or maybe the flow that they anticipated and the engineers is not really using, and so that property is really not being fully utilized. It's almost a take, unintended take, that there could be a process to where an applicant can say, hey, listen, in good intent, we built this over a series of years. We believe it's not really being utilized. Could we file a process to reclaim this property through whatever? Could you please find out, number one, our cities, is there a process that we could at least model to follow? And if not, could the city of Puyallup make a process for a case by case? I don't anticipate happening much, but if there's 1 or 2 or 3 across the city that makes sense, it seems like a blight to not use it as it's intended. So could you drill down and find that out? Because I'm sure that many property owners are feeling like, hey, I built this 10 years ago and it's really not being utilized, and then they have kind of this bitter taste in their mouth, and we want to be able to have a process that, hey, we thought it was going to be needed, it's not now, so that maybe we can get this reclaimed a little bit. Is that fair to ask that in this comprehensive plan to take a look at that?
Well, sure. We could take a look at that. I will give you one example where it's not so much it was underutilized, but they had an opportunity to redevelop, and that is with Step by Step.
Sure.
They created a pond in their first phase of work, but since then, a storm trunk line has been built that's direct discharge to the city. So now they're developing that area that was the stormwater pond, eliminating that and using the direct discharge. So private development does this occasionally. They'll look at something and say, can we rework this? And maybe it used to be a pond that was needed here, but we can rework it. Maybe the development has gotten so valuable that they can now look at it and say, we want to do an underground vault instead of the pond, which takes up less area and stuff. So it is done on a case-by-case basis with private developers that they come in and they say, hey, I can better utilize this area here. It still has to meet the stormwater regulations. I often say it's kind of depends on who you talk to. If you talk to the person that's developing, they're thinking, I can't believe what you're making me do for stormwater. And then you talk to the person that's just downstream or far downstream, and they go, you're not doing enough. I am receiving more water than I ever have before. So I find a chuckle on that when same people looking at the same thing, but they see it from different perspectives.
You've been talking to people who live on Clark Square. Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mayor Castaba. This conversation is really enlightening, so I just had a follow-up question in consideration. So for the stormwater management existing development, SMED, I don't know if I said that right, but having fun with the acronyms. If private development does indeed install these direct deposits that we were just talking about in regards to step by step, does that count towards our 6.9 acres?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, what they're trying to get at with this requirement in our stormwater permit is, in theory, as places develop, you improve the water quality, you improve the water quantity by managing it on site, but you have a tremendous amount of areas that are undeveloped. I don't think a direct discharge would necessarily count, but what would count, so we're building the 4th Street line, and one of our promoting factors on that is as redevelopment happens down, they can tie into this line, but they still need to do water quality on their site. So that would tie in because you're doing treatment on that, getting treatment for it and stuff. So it's considering that, but they're really trying to get at the areas that aren't developing, and what are you as a city doing to kind of maybe improve things there when it isn't developing?
Very good. Thank you, Hans.
Okay, with that, if there are no further questions, Hans and Kelton, thank you very much. And let's see, Margaret, thank you for being in the wings there. You were, on call. You did very well. So let's go ahead and move on to 1B, which is the Good Samaritan Hospital Master Plan and final environmental impact statement. And if we could have Senior Planner Chris Beal come forward and give us a presentation, that'd be excellent.
All right, Mayor and Council, my name is Chris Beal. I'm a Senior Planner here with the Development and Permitting Services Department. So tonight we're back with a presentation on the Good Samaritan Hospital Master Plan and Environmental Impact Statement process. Council's received a few updates on this in the past. We've gotten through the Planning Commission process and we're coming up on the adoption process. So just as an initial reminder, Good Sam is proposing a new 20-year master plan approval. Think of it like almost like a customized zoning district for the campus and the properties that Multicare owns there that basically would govern the build out of their campus over the next 20 years. There was a previous master plan and environmental impact statement that was approved in 2003 with a major amendment in 2007. That was a 10-year master plan, so that is currently expired. Under the zoning for medical, Multicare does need a master plan to do any exterior new additions or development on the campus per the zoning code. So we're going to invite Multicare up. Tim Holmes, there's our Senior Vice President with Good Samaritan and Multicare. He's going to give a short presentation, then I'll be back up after that.
Thank you. Councilmember Gilliam, are you? Okay, that's fine. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. It's good to be here this evening. As Chris said, my name's Tim Holmes, and I'm Chief Executive for the South Sound for Multi-Care Health System, which includes 8 of our hospitals in the South Sound. Good Samaritan is one of those hospitals, and I had the privilege of also being the interim president in 2024. I'm very excited to share and introduce you to the new president for Good Samaritan Hospital. Her name is Dawn Anuskevich, and she's right here. Do you mind standing and waving, Dawn? And so Good Samaritan has a dedicated president now, and she is going to do a way better job than I did. I'll just say that. So we're excited to be here today to give you an update and answer any questions that you have. We have our team here to assist me, and if we need to take your questions and follow up with you, we'll let you know that as well. So this is kind of a high level of what we'll cover today. It's important to know that Multi-Care is committed to being the highest value system of health in Puyallup in East Pierce County. In order for us to do this well, we must improve access to high quality care, both in the outpatient and inpatient environments. As you know, Good Sam is the only inpatient hospital in Puyallup and in the surrounding area. Our network of services goes way beyond inpatient care. Delivered at the hospital includes additional 35 locations across and covering multiple medical specialties. We want to keep as much care as possible at home in our community. And it's important to note that greater than 50% of Puyallup and East Pierce residents obtain their care from outside of this community, and we think we can do better. Our master plan is aligned with that vision. We've taken significant steps already to actualize this vision. In August of 2023, we received approval from the state of Washington for an additional 160 licensed beds as a part of the hospital. These will be located in the new patient care tower that we'll discuss, which is anticipated to be the first major infrastructure project under the new master campus plan. Work on projects that will enable the patient care tower are already beginning this year.
Tim, I have a question.
Yes.
The area of service for Good Samaritan Hospital, do you have a specific geographic area that this facility serves? I know you have satellites too, but what is your area of service?
It's really primarily East Pierce County.
All the way to Mount Rainier?
Yes.
Okay. Eatonville?
Included.
Okay. Do you go out to Morton?
I don't know if we have a clinic out in Morton.
Okay. Just getting an idea here. Obviously,
Yeah.
Bonnie Lake.
We do have a clinic
Buckley,
in Eatonville. In Buckley.
Is it Enumclaw?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So it's very, very big area of
It's a
service.
broad area.
That we service here from this facility. Go ahead. Proceed.
It is. Thank you. So the master campus plan considers it's really the maximum amount of proposed development on site. All future developments will require consideration of benefits and impacts prior to advancing. It's important to note that when we see the full master campus plan. I would be remiss to not bring up the major headwinds that we're experiencing in healthcare at this point in time. Not the least of which is challenges around Medicaid rates, that we've not seen increases in 20 years for inpatient Medicaid rates that don't cover more than 60% of total cost of care, that ends up getting shifted to private insurance and commercial insurance. We've been operating at an ongoing negative margin as well. So determining what we spend our very limited capital on is a very difficult thing for us to wrestle with. Here's a visual of what would be the full build out of the hospital campus. Letter N there in the middle reflects the new patient care tower that I referenced.
And Tim, just
Yes, sir.
Again, refresh everyone's memory. This is over a 20-year period.
Correct.
This is what we plan on seeing.
This is the maximum
Okay.
that
So
we would
all
like to completely build out.
Okay. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd love to get a schematic on this. I don't know if someone could provide that for staff. I'd love to get a kind of a vision. I think there's something visual about that. And is this somewhat public information at this point? Obviously, we're here talking about a public setting. But the reason why I ask that is that, there are a lot of there's a lot of economic development that will drive from this project over 20 years beyond just what you're doing, and this public knowledge to key stakeholders that I engage would want to know this information because they're going to want to invest in this area. So if I could have a copy of this, that would, and some talking points, which I'm making notes. I engage with a lot of people in the business sector who, I've been talking about this new wing, but I don't have any concept of what that really means. So any talking points would help me, I think, really build some synergy of additional investment in the area, which would just, again, cause us all to do quite well in this region. So that'd be great. And then I do want to go back a little bit, and I want to make sure I heard correctly. You said something in the nature of 50% in this region are going outside for help, and that you made a quote that we can or want to do better.
Yeah.
Can you tell me in a nutshell why is that, and then what are some of the things that you want to do to make it better? Because there's obviously a perception there, in some sense, there's kind of a private choice. They can choose. I want to go here. Sure. I want to go there. Right.
Yeah. And let me simplify the answer because it could be a very complicated answer. But when I talk about over 50% receiving care outside of Good Samaritan East Pierce residents, we're talking about inpatient care in that situation. And so there are certain capabilities that we have as a part of our medical specialties and availability to support the different types of medical needs that people have that we can do at Good Sam and its associated clinics. We're wanting to expand the types of medical specialties and procedures and support that we're able to provide so that people can receive that care locally at Good Sam as opposed to having to go to Seattle or Tacoma or elsewhere for that specialty care.
So it's more not so much a choice of branding that I want to do business here. It's what I'm hearing is that we need to offer more for them to want to do it here because we don't offer it here, so we're going there. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's part of it. Okay. So medical specialties is a part of it. Specific delineated insurance also plays into this. So if it's a competitor that has insurance that isn't covered, doesn't cover multi-care services, then they would have to go elsewhere. Gotcha. Would be another example of that. Those are some of the large examples.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it caught my ear, and certainly I think it's good to capture the market in this area. If you're kind of a local regional hospital and providing services, it's nice to kind of stay close to home.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything closer. I prefer that. I don't want to go to Seattle and get any services there.
Me neither.
It sounds terrible. So thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. Continue? Okay. So our mission begins with the word partnering, and that's very purposeful. We know we cannot create a healthy future alone, and we're committed to a system of care that goes well beyond the hospital campus and is deeply connected in the community. We've demonstrated this commitment for many years through our investments in local nonprofits in Puyallup, as well as community health programs. And we're embedded in local educational institutions as well, with multiple student placements, faculty participation, and support of new healthcare programs ongoing. This includes our commitment of growing the physician workforce locally through our graduate medical education. So with that, I'm going to hand this back to Chris. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, so master plans are covered under our zoning code. It's under Title 2088. They're specifically required for certain types of uses. Some folks on council will remember Pierce College went through a master plan process a few years ago. That's under the public facility zone. Under the med zone, it's required. Just the kind of mechanics of how that works, council approves a master plan after the planning commission reviews it and holds a public hearing on it. So the master plan was reviewed by the planning commission. They did a site visit last year as well. So they did kind of that heavy work, and then the ordinance is adopted after a public meeting with council. So it's just existing conditions. I feel like probably people are familiar with this. Most of that development that was shown on Tim's schematic, and I'll go through some of the iterations of the phases on the next few slides, but this is just kind of a Google Earth photo of the entire campus. Most of the master plan development is going to occur in the portions of the property owned by Multicare north of 15th, so some of these properties south of 15th aren't going to be touched or added upon. So under the Good Samaritan Hospital study that was part of their certificate of need process, there was an indicated need for an additional 249 beds by 2036. The existing Dally Tower contains 360 beds. The new patient care tower would add 160 new licensed inpatient beds, plus it would transfer 30 existing observational beds, so those are less than 24-hour care beds from Dally Tower over to the new care tower. Similar to the Dally Tower, there would be a shell floor. Basically means there's an additional floor that wouldn't be built out, that would be subject to future licensing, that would add an additional 40 beds. So the total build out of the new care tower in phase 1 would be 200 net new inpatient beds plus the 30 observational that were transferred. The other phases I will cover on the next slides. This shows you there are sub-phases within each phase, but there are 4 total phases. So within that first phase, you'll see that there are essentially 5 different projects, including an enabling project, which is a kitchen remodel on the Dally Tower, which is under permitting right now. Then the future phases are the medical office buildings, the central support tower, and the expansion of Dally Tower towards 3rd Street. So this is phase 1. This, with the red circle, shows you kind of the building build-outs of phase 1. The new care tower being central to that, that would be located just to the east of the existing Dally Tower in kind of that large grassy area. There's a courtyard there as well that would be remodeled and incorporated. A couple of the other projects, if you visited the hospital during COVID, you'll remember that there was a tent, sort of an entry-level tent outside of the emergency room. That would sort of, that lobby expansion would occur as a permanent basis under a phase 1 build-out. And then there's also a utility plant over at 14th and 3rd. There's an existing building there that contains many of the utilities. There's actually a utility corridor, like a tunnel, that you can literally walk through. I walked through it. It was very interesting. Under 3rd Street southeast that goes from the utility plant over to the existing Dally Tower. The 2 garages here, A and B, with the blue arrows, those are actually option A or option B. Multicare plugged this in because they don't have the exact footprint of the garage that would serve basically people that need to park for the new care tower quite yet. So one of these 2 options would be built, but not both of them. So option A here, option B north of 14th Avenue. Under phase 2, there would be a medical office building located up here at 5th and 15th, along with a future parking garage. Under phase 3, there would be a second medical office building. These are 100,000 square feet apiece maximum under that 3rd scenario. And then the 4th scenario, between the pavilion buildings, which are the white portions of the buildings that front onto 13th Avenue, between that and the Dally Tower, there's some open courtyards. There would essentially be a 90,000 square foot central support tower, as well as a potential 30,000 square foot expansion of the Dally Tower towards 3rd Street. And those are in the 4th phases, so towards the back end of the 20-year build-out. And this was the same image that Tim showed. Again, like I said, 20 years. Our code requires a 10-year minimum build-out time period. Most master plans do a 10-year. I think because of the scale and the number and scope of the development, Multicare has chosen a longer time frame there. A key part about that longer time frame is that the central support tower and the 3rd Street expansion doesn't yet have programming. There's a list of different potential options of uses within those buildings, but as of right now, Multicare doesn't expect any new patient-facing services or new employees. So to keep that in mind, because that is essentially one of the conditions as part of the EIS, will be to confirm that that's the case once we get to that further out towards the 20-year build-out phase, to confirm that those don't include anything because they were not included in the traffic analysis. One of the other key improvements that we went through earlier on in the process was ambulance bays. So we have ambulance bays that serve the ER, essentially in the existing Dally Tower, and our folks within the fire community were concerned and have been concerned about throughput and capacity essentially within the ambulance bays. There's a phased approach. I'll actually show the improvements on the next couple of slides. There's a phased approach to basically increasing the throughput in phase one. That would be tied to the initial improvements as part of phase one, and then a future phase that would be tied to phase four that would essentially expand the size and the number of through lanes. The first phase also includes some parking improvements for ambulances, and I'll cover that on a future slide here. Some of the other issues that we dealt with are building exiting to meet building and fire codes. We don't yet have a lot of design. A lot of this is schematic and conceptual, so there's concerns about exiting from existing buildings relative to new buildings. So there's a condition from the Planning Commission that came from staff review related to that. And the Planning Commission also was concerned about the off-street parking standards that are proposed as part of the master plan, and Multicare responded by increasing those parking requirements for medical office buildings as a condition of advancing this through the Planning Commission process. And I think I just basically covered the next slide, so I won't re-explain all of that. In the EIS, so the EIS is a staff level function, but the environmental impact statement is going to be finalized before the council takes final adoption on the ordinance that would adopt the master plan. So that EIS is key to the council's final adoption process. Probably the three most significant issues that are part of our mitigation measures in the final EIS that's upcoming are related to traffic. That's probably the biggest one. The traffic impacts from this project obviously use mostly 15th Avenue and South Meridian to come in and out of the campus at different times of the day. There's really significant impacts to South Meridian 15th as part of the full build-out analysis. There's fairly significant impacts, including widening the 15th Avenue corridor, installing a couple of new signals, new turn lanes, widening the 15th and Meridian intersection. We do have a schematic on a future slide that I'll show you here in a minute. But basically, that's probably the biggest issue related to this EIS is the significance of the traffic impacts. One of the other measures is related to sanitary sewer. Obviously, hospitals and medical facilities do have a lot of effluent that come out of them. We're actually in the process of doing an upgrade near the campus right now. That's a fully funded project that we're working on. But future phases, phase 2 forward, would also include some sanitary sewer main upgrades from the building itself down to the Meridian and 14th area where we're making the sewer upgrades currently. In terms of public service analysis, we do have some additional radio frequency analysis regarding shadowing. We do have some shadows that seem like they're fairly routine as part of a lot of development, but taller development does create radio shadows. This is kind of a new thing that I'm actually learning about. That creates frequency shadows because of the height of the building and the line of sight to the antenna that serves the area. So I'll show you basically a output from the modeling work from that. And then we talked about the ambulance bays and fire protection on the previous slide. Okay, this is the ambulance bay improvements. Sorry that the callouts probably don't work out very well on here, but we'll get you, or you guys have received a physical copy of this, so hopefully you can zoom into that. Essentially what's going on currently in the ambulance bays right now is we only have a limited number of turning bays within there. Porte-cochere, basically the ambulances get queued up and they spill out into the drive lane that serves the ER. You've also got ADA parking stalls that serve the pharmacy within the ER. Within the ambulance bays themselves, we currently actually have police parking stalls that also create a turning movement conflict. So in this first phase, what Multicare is going to do is they're going to add sort of an overflow parking space. When you pull in to that ER lane, you'll see that there's kind of a planter strip and a walkway that would kind of be moved over to accommodate an additional overflow parking. The police stalls would be moved out of the ambulance bay to remove the conflict, and they would be moved over here next to the ADA stalls. And then there would be some turning movements, like this curbing here would be eliminated to allow for a little more queuing space and turning movement within there, as well as some of the other stuff on the other side that's similar. In the second phase, and again, this is tied to the phase 4 expansion of Dally Tower, which could potentially include an expansion of the ER. That's one of the possible programmed uses as part of that. If you've been out here, you'll notice that there's a large landscape area next to the, essentially what is a porte-cochere or an overhang. That would be placed into a vault to create a little more hard space, and that would actually add additional lanes of capacity, and that would be phase 2 of the ambulance bay improvements. We worked extensively with Central Pierce on this, and this is a sort of an approved approach that Central Pierce is satisfied with at this point. This is the radio frequency coverage area. This shows you the existing conditions of the radio frequency coverage. As you guys can see, the Dally Tower does actually create a radio frequency shadow. So the red areas are areas of lower coverage. This is on a hillside. We've got antennas both in South Hill and in the Edgewood area. The Edgewood area sort of serves this from a line of sight perspective and has created some coverage issues, and those are exterior to buildings. Within the building envelopes themselves, there are booster systems essentially that are installed as part of those projects to make sure that interior to the building there are no radio frequency gaps, but those are tightly regulated, or actually FCC regulated, to sort of eliminate possible radio frequencies coming out of buildings and causing conflicts in public rights of way for police and fire services. So there are ways to mitigate for gaps within buildings, but outside of the building envelope, sometimes these things occur, and they seem like we have an on-call consultant that works with our police department. We've done a lot of coordination with emergency management with Kirsten and with Scott, and we had a meeting actually this morning to discuss this. This is the additional radio frequency shadowing that would occur as part of the proposed care tower. Does create some new gaps in there, but they do appear to be fairly routine and incremental. Police are not as concerned about this as maybe the visual might show some concern. This seems to be relatively routine. As you guys can see, just within this maps snapshot, we actually have some coverage gaps within the fairgrounds that doesn't include buildings as tall as some of these care towers. So we don't have a great deal of data, like we don't have a citywide map to show where all these gaps are, but anecdotally, it seems like police and fire are aware that these things do occur. They're manageable. We try to work within the bounds of what we have. But full disclosure, we wanted to make sure that the council knows that this is part of the EIS. Okay, this is the traffic mitigation, and this is the really heavy stuff that's part of the mitigation in the EIS. So again, the 15th Avenue corridor carries the majority of the traffic. And we're talking close to 1,000 PM peak hour trips, so it's a lot of volume that comes out of the campus. Most of the development on the campus is going to come to the 15th and 5th intersection, because as you know, the 2 medical office buildings are here. The multiple parking garages that they're installing are there. So most of this traffic does need to come up from Meridian on the 15th Avenue corridor up to 5th. So we've obviously been working with a traffic consultant on a really detailed traffic model for a long time about this a few years, and we're finalizing this mitigation. Essentially, as you can see from the call-outs, 15th Avenue would be widened out to essentially a 4-lane corridor. The roundabout, which functions fairly well now, would not function well enough to handle the volume there, so we would need to signalize that intersection, signalize the 5th and 15th intersection, and the South Meridian southbound movement. So if you're coming southbound on Meridian from 512, there needs to be 2 left turn lanes to accommodate the traffic coming up the hill because of queuing and level of service failures within that model. The biggest issue with this, obviously, is we don't have all of the right-of-way, and we have building conflicts. I mean, those are kind of the 2 main issues, is particularly between 3rd Street and Meridian. Multicare doesn't own the properties down here. Multicare does own some of the properties further up. So some of the issues in feasibility with this would be procuring the right-of-way that's necessary for that. The city's in discussions with Multicare on a strategy to do that, but that's not currently included in the master plan. The master plan and the EIS essentially are a disclosure document to say these are the impacts that would occur. None of this, one really important point is none of these traffic mitigation measures, widening, adding the additional signals, are going to be tied to the new care tower. They begin at the 2nd phase moving forward from there. So the new care tower would be able to proceed without a lot of these improvements. There will obviously be frontage improvements, access improvements in their driveways and that type of thing. But these widening, signalization, the major improvements start occurring at the future phases when we see additional medical office buildings, which do have a pretty high traffic generation rate, particularly in the evening hours, as well as some of the other uses on the site. Okay, as far as next steps, we're here tonight at the council study session. We anticipate issuing the final EIS sometime next month, as well as coming back for a first reading with council for the master plan. That's a public meeting, not a public hearing. And then the anticipated timeline for final adoption by council would be in June. So that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, excellent. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had some questions for the hospital staff or admins, if that's okay, maybe Tim or whoever. First of all, certainly.
Tim, if you'd like to come forward.
Just making sure I was the best one to answer.
Oh, okay. Well,
Well,
I would like Dawn Anaskevich. And by the way, my name is Castema, so my last name is mispronounced all the time. So I'm not sure I got that correct. But we could have both of you come forward. And Dawn, I actually wanted to call you forward to make a few comments regardless of the questions. But Councilmember Johnson, proceed.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted to find out a couple things. First of all, speaking personally, and I can't speak for the council collectively, but I have a pretty good sense that it may be the case, but I'll speak for myself. Certainly appreciate your organization here in our city as good stewards. You guys have been here a long time. It goes way back to that original facility, which is down the road a little bit. So I think there's a history here of how many years?
Oh, boy.
I think
Clay, do you remember off the top of your head?
70 plus years probably.
You moved up on the hill
52.
After World War II.
No, yeah. So.
Home and then came into being up there from downtown.
Yeah, but it was probably existing back then, so it's probably 70 plus years, whatever. So anyway, the point
is in my mind, but I'm not.
The point being is thank you for not just existing, but actually growing and quite amazingly. So I personally am grateful for your service that you provide to our region, to our city, beyond just the economic development, right? I mean, people think, they think of new business coming in as tax-based. Well, yeah, I certainly appreciate that, but what about the services we provide, which I think are more than money? You're dealing with loved ones and health issues, and so I think that's the bigger value there for our city to have a fine organization as yourself such here. But give me just some general scope. So let's just put all 4 phases into one package, and if hypothetically, everything comes through, what kind of significant investment are we talking about in all 4 phases if everything comes through? You're going to talk about a few $1 million. So can you give me an idea of what that range could be?
Well, for the patient care tower itself, we're talking hundreds of millions.
Right.
Right. And so for the full project, we're talking, amplify that by X amount. So I don't want to give an exact amount, but, in the hundreds of millions of investment.
Could be $500 million, possibly if you're getting 500 million, you're probably getting close to that. So that's a significant amount. It'd be good to have that number. I don't know if it's confidential, but the reason why it's important is to show the skin in the game, that you guys are willing to invest and actually develop here to provide greater services, greater economic viability, and that has synergy and it should be celebrated. And I think that it kind of creates this kind of synergy where people want to get involved and be part of that. So I think this collective amount would be fun to know, unless it's proprietary or confidential. I'd love to have a kind of what they anticipate budget if all 4 phases come out. And if you can't get that to me, or you're not able to get that to me, at least phase 1 with a tower, I'd love to have that number. That would be, really crucial for me.
Yes. And it would be a range at this point, pretty significant.
Which is fine. A range is something, because I'm guessing. But I imagine when you're doing budgets, you have to have some realistic amount so you know what to ask for, what to raise, or whatever the case is, right? And then secondarily, again, I would like to know phase 1, but love to know if, again, vision. There's vision for this, and I think for council visionaries, we want to be able to know vision. So I'd love to know what you anticipate, not just the first, kind of phase, but if everything came through in all 4 phases, what do you anticipate jobs coming into the area? Love to know that, right? So that would be information I'd love to get. And then if all 4 phases come through and that blueprint is there and all this is in there, how would that scale to other significant hospitals in Washington State in terms of, providing the kind of all systems go north here, not to that Harbor View. Nothing against Harbor View, but if this is really developed, will that generate kind of, this is the star that we want to come here for services? Love to know if what that goal might look like in terms of finished product.
And the additional medical capabilities
Yeah.
that we can take on.
So can I get some information on that? I'm putting you on the spot now, but that's important. And again, as I mentioned, I talked to a lot of stakeholders, and they would love to hear that, because I think you would find, you talked about collaboration and community. If they knew, hey, you guys are a major player, things really happen. And I'll give you a private example. When Nordstrom, I work for Nordstrom, and when they go into a city, people find out all of a sudden values increase because they know this is going to stimulate a lot of jobs and economic development. And if you're putting that kind of investment in our city, people should know that so they can begin to prepare and cooperate. We're going to need more housing for the jobs you're going to provide for, more services, restaurants, all these things. We want to get that out there so they can kind of get ahead of it too. So as those things develop, that there's a place for them to live and dine and recreate, all that stuff. So love to get some collaboration effort on that. And then lastly, I'll leave it at that. That would be great. I understand that you called a meeting to meet with each council member. I think that was what I understood. So looking forward to getting that, having some connection with you. And congratulations, Dawn,
thank you.
on your new role here. Welcome to Puyallup, and I'm excited to kind of find out your vision and partner with you and see what we can do to make this a great place for all of our constituents here.
Absolutely. I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you. I just to summarize the request there, dollar investment range, number 2, job, and then 3, how this medical system, healthcare system, will compare to other healthcare systems throughout Washington State. Give us a comparison as to, your area of service, et cetera, how that would compare to other areas, capacity, et cetera. Councilmember Whitting, and then Councilmember Dorr.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for all the work you're doing. Good Sam is a anchor for medical care in Eastern Pierce County, and we've seen so much growth down in South Hill and Graham and Tahale and Buckley and everywhere. And we need the services you provide, and increasing those services is important for our city. So we really appreciate that. I picked up on one thing that's always kind of close to my heart here, graduate medical education program. I think there's an opportunity to partner on education and provide pipelines for high school kids to go to higher education and then on to medical jobs in this city. So I love that you've got a program to do that, and love to hear more about that. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. They do actually just recently established a program with PLU. With PLU in collaboration with the Washington State University Medical School out of Spokane. Councilmember Dorr.
Excuse me, thank you. I don't know if my questions are, I think they're probably for Chris, but I'm not entirely sure about that. One, offline, I'm interested in knowing more about this radio frequency shadowing issue, so I don't know how to ascertain that information. The radio system is something that has been a top priority for the public safety community as a whole, and addressing coverage deficits is something that that a single system has been contemplating. So I'm curious as to how big of an impact this is, and that I don't know if that would be a Chris question. And then the ambulance bay, I appreciate that the hospital is working with Central Pierce on that issue. That was something that they flagged for me. I'm trying to understand the phasing of it in that. So does the new tower an expansion of services, does that not increase the trips? So I'm curious about the phasing and how that came about. Would we anticipate with these expanded services more trips to the hospital or more people transporting there? So is the phasing of the ambulance bay, so is it timed with that, or how is that phasing working, Chris?
Well, I mean, to answer your question, I think what Central Pierce and other fire responders would say, they've already seen the increase regardless of whether there's additional services at the hospital. I think Multicare's position is we're not adding any additional beds within the existing ER, so there's not a direct tie. But what I will say is this was definitely sort of a negotiated compromise between Central Pierce and Multicare to come up with a phased approach that would address the overflow now with the additional lane in the emergency room driveway, as well as make the improvements within the existing envelope of the ambulance bay coverage area, the porte-cochere area, with the additional phases that would add capacity tied to the Dally Tower expansion, which again is far out, so it doesn't have exact programming, but one of the possible programming uses would be an expansion of the ER at that time, in which case they would obviously need to expand capacity within the bays. But basically, yeah, I think that this is the compromise with Central Pierce to address the existing conditions, which have gotten worse since Dally Tower's open, just because there's been more calls for medical service and more transports to the hospital, that I think Central Pierce expects to continue in the same trend, regardless of the new care tower or not. It's not a perfect compromise. I think Central Pierce's first stance was, expand the capacity of the bays now. But I think over time, they've come to an understanding that the phased approach is probably the best way to do it.
And so are we confident that this phased approach is going to address the concern of ambulances being stuck and not able to go back out on calls?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that the turning movement, by removing the police stalls and removing the curbing at the exit of the ambulance bays, will assist with the movements. Like, a lot of the ambulances do get stuck because of the parking stalls within the ambulance bay and because of the exiting pathway is essentially a little bit narrowed at the base. But, is that going to fix it permanently in the initial phase? To be determined. Yeah.
Okay, so that I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate that the conversations have been had, but it still is concerning to me. And while I'm the ex officio for Central Pierce, they're not the only fire district that is transporting people to this hospital. So I hope that we are adequately addressing that concern. If we're increasing our presence, we want to make sure that we are able to have those ambulances get back out and respond to calls in a timely fashion and not create a public safety issue here. And Chris, how can I learn more about the radio frequency shadowing? And is it just the radios? It has nothing to do with LTE or the signals there. I've been in the hospital, several times. And there's parts where like my cell phone works and it doesn't. But are we, with new technology evolving, is this only a radio frequency issue, or does it cross over into the other technologies?
It doesn't cross over into cell phone. It's just radio frequency for first responders only. And
so
to answer your question of how you could do that, I could send you an email. We could set up a meeting, whatever works for you.
Okay, and because as there's different technologies going on, and I know that Central Pierce is using LTE for some of their communications, and I don't know whether or not that's the wave of the future as far as being able to transmit different information to them. But you're confident that is not going to be impacted?
We shared the radio frequency study with Central Pierce, and they didn't report back any concerns about its findings. I guess that's
okay. And I don't mean to just say Central Pierce. Like I said, I'm just aware of what they are doing. So I don't want to make this a Central Pierce issue. I just want to understand it from my South Sound hat, what it is that we are or not addressing here.
We can follow up.
Okay.
Yep.
That would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Dorr. Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mayor Castema. I just wanted to say this was very enlightening, and I really appreciate my colleagues' comments and perspectives. I come from a little bit of a different perspective in that 6 years ago, I spent Easter inside Good Sam in the physical therapy unit because I got in a really bad motorcycle accident. So there was a trauma unit at Tacoma General that, can't remember which other hospital they bounced between, but they were like some really effective unit, and then it just happened to be at Tacoma General, so I got sent straight to there. And to learn to walk again, came to our hospital here in Puyallup, where we have the best physical therapy unit. So as we were going through the plan, I'm like, oh, I know that entrance. Oh, I know that parking lot. Oh, I know. Anyway, so long story short, I just wanted to say I'm really excited to see this expansion come to Puyallup. I see the benefit from personal, but also for our community and the surrounding area. I also am a teacher at a local junior high where I drive past the hospital every day, Monday through Friday, and I'm very aware of the traffic. And I'm really curious to see how this is going to play out with the build out, because it is very busy there between 6 and 6:30 a.m. every day. And then I think there's shift change right around 3 or 3:30. I'm not quite sure right in there, but in general, I think my greatest concern is how are we going to manage that? But I also am very grateful for this growth in our community and the benefits of it. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that and say thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. Councilmember Adler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation this evening. I appreciated hearing Councilmember Gilliam's Good Sam story. Mine does not hold a candle to hers, and I think we can all be very grateful for the immaculate care that she received and is now able to live a fully functional life and ride. Yes, that is important. My Good Sam story, I was just born there. So without that, I would not be sitting here today probably, or have as good of a story to say that I was born right there. So on a serious note, I appreciate the collaboration. I hope to continue to see that as we move the chains down the field, and very much appreciate this update. Thank you. Oh, one more thing, sorry.
No, fine. Go ahead.
The Good Sam ER, third busiest in the nation or fourth?
Yeah, third busiest when you take into consideration our off-campus EDs as well that are under the hospital license.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Now, and I'd like the CEO to come forward, Dawn, if you'd like to make a few comments. Obviously, there's a fondness here. I think probably a fair share of people here were born in the hospital. Good Samaritan Hospital, I see all you shaking heads, including our city manager, who was kind of a military brat or whatever you want to call it. But however, he started his life right here. My children, of course, and my mom worked the emergency room back in the 1960s as a nurse, and I have one of my sons is up there as a student right now working. So it's a very big part of this community, a lot of fondness. The name Good Samaritan just, it means a lot to this community, and I think you're aware of that. You actually came, I believe you were a CEO at another hospital called Good Samaritan, so, good names are shared. But with that, please go ahead, tell us about yourself, and give us your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. Thank you so much, and thank you to the council people and the staff of the city. So I've been here about 62 or 3 days. I like to say February robbed me of 2 days, being a short month. But one thing I know is true, and everyone I have met has been incredibly generous, and I think the town name of Puyallup really is represented by the people I've gotten to meet each and every day that I've spent for the last 2 months here. One of the things that is really important is our healthcare systems, our hospitals, our anchor organizations, and we partner with our community. And Puyallup is very blessed to have Multi-Care and Good Samaritan here in the town, and I am humbled and honored to have been selected to be the chief executive and to lead that with an amazing team. Our chief medical officer, Dr. Corliss, was born in the hospital as well. He likes to say he's been there for 59 years. So many of you are in good standing with our chief medical officer. One of the things that is really exciting is how do we create our community that we live in for tomorrow, and how do we make sure we keep pace and are able to bring the latest and greatest technologies to our community, because we are privileged and honored at Good Samaritan. We get to take care of people's most precious loved ones. That's our friends, our neighbors, our family. So when my family is here visiting me and when they relocate here with me, when they need care, they're going to come to Good Samaritan. And so we want to make sure that folks can get the care they need here, and for the very small things that we are then able to safely be able to transport them to other locations. But just as importantly, as you, Councilwoman, shared, you were brought to Good Samaritan in order to have that high-end quality care that really isn't duplicated anywhere else within the state and really the Pacific Northwest. So Good Samaritan is a gem that we have, and I'm excited to be part of the team in partnership with the city planning and the rest of the team to bring the next 50, 75, 100 years to our community and really imagine where we can go. And most importantly, create pathways for folks to see themselves within healthcare. Whether you're a doctor, a nurse, a sterile technician, an attorney supporting the team, there's lots of roles for our people to be able to learn and bring their talents to our community and stay right here. Happy to answer if there's any other questions or anything else you'd like me to cover, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments.
My pleasure.
And if there are no further questions, we're now going to move on to citizens' comments. Clerk, could you please read the guidelines for citizen comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This time is reserved for a public comment on tonight's agenda topics only. The mayor will call on those who have provided their names in advance. Then the mayor will call for other citizens who wish to speak. For the record, please state your name and address or city council district in which you reside. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole, not as individual council members. All comments are limited to 2 minutes. The clerk will provide verbal notice when only 30 seconds remain. As a reminder, this is a portion of the meeting is for council's opportunity to hear from the community and not to engage in debate. Lastly, per state law, this public comment period cannot be used to speak in support of or in opposition to a ballot measure or individual candidacy, and no such comments will be allowed.
With that, I do have a form filled out. I have one this evening. Andrelinda Izquierdo.
Izquierdo, yes.
Izquierdo, please.
Thank you. So good evening, council members. So my name is Angelina Izquierdo, and I am a sexual assault and human trafficking victim. That's what brought me here today. So I would like to share my opinion as well as discourage funding for a particular program that was introduced and voted on at the last meeting presented by the Puyallup Police Department. But I urgently ask you to please discontinue funding the new DCR program. It's connected to the Good Samaritan Hospital program in conjunction with each other. Before or upon reevaluation this summer in June or July. It can be dangerous and discriminatory. I have personal experience with another department that was very negative and considered illegal against the law with each individual and group that was associated in the lineup of this process, with the exception of a couple of people actually extending courtesy and concern. And that's, I had a male nurse. And that's with, that was only at the hospital. It got a bit more positive for me there. So with that, I'd like to skip over to, it all started with at least a couple of officers in video living quarters, unexpectedly beating up, choking, tranquilizing, as well as dosing with very potent drugs that can be considered poisonous and sexually assaulting orally to encourage the victim to be quiet. This led me to officially being a sexual assault victim and survivor, in which I stated openly to the entire hospital floor once I got there. It was very traumatizing, but I remained steadfast in sharing for awareness and empowerment.
30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. The point of the crisis program is having a person that is considered involuntary, as in no longer having human rights and access to resources. The proof of this that supports this viewpoint is a section that lists mental health disorders, like mentioned in the presentation by Captain of PPD. So again, I urge all of you council members to defund the program, but also that multi-care incorporated into your care plan. So with your goals from the
Mr. Mayor, the speaker has reached 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. So just to have it merged together. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrelyn. Okay, I have only received one of these forms. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? I don't see anyone who would like to do that. With that, I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. It was very stormwater, dealing with the hospital. Again, very good issues for our community to contemplate, make some very key, important decisions on our future. With that, if there are no further comments, we're going to adjourn. Thank you.